going on, guys? My name is Ryan, aka Zella, and a video came across my feed that I want to respond to because I really like this topic and I'm glad that somebody else is finally talking about it. This is Captain Diesel. Shout out to Captain Diesel's Dojo. He's talking about power scaling and how in the power scaling world, we've kind of lost track of the story and we've replaced that with just an emphasis on the fist. And there's no need for that. But I saw this video and I liked the beginning of what he was saying, so I wanted to react to it.
I'm gonna say it, death battles and power scaling are ruining conversations in comics and media as a whole. There's been a lot of irritation I've had over the years in regards to this proclivity to find a brand new character or even characters that exist and immediately think, can they beat such and such? Are they stronger than such and such? Or, key example, can they beat Goku? Are they stronger than Superman? And I wanna sit down and discuss why I have issue with this and why I think there is.
Noticed this phenomenon when I first came back into collecting like a year or two ago, that social media surrounding comics turned into almost this with everything. Like every conversation that I wanted to join, it seemed like everybody was talking about who could beat who. And that's fine. I love that conversation, but that was like every conversation.
Is time better served in reading the material in a way that is probably more closer to what the creator of it intended and not always concerning yourself over who can punch who harder in the face. If you wanna know what happens?
I am a firm believer in the Stan Lee quote just as much as I am a firm believer in the death of the author. So I understand where both sides are coming from when people say, well, once the character is out there, then, you know, it's for the audience to decide how strong the character is. But I also understand where it is sometimes narratively important for the character to just get outscaled. Like they just have to lose because that's part of the story. Not everybody wins all the time. No matter what, like it's not a math equation that has to work out the same way.
All right, let's get into it. First and foremost, I want you guys to know I was one of you in regards to people that love power scaling and death battles. I grew up watching all the death battle videos on YouTube. I grew up being a part of these conversations because they were fun. They're fun to have when you're a kid.
But did you watch the Ultimate Showdown? Did you watch the Ultimate Showdown?
This is the ultimate showdown. Ultimate destiny. Good guys, bad guys, and explosions. As far as the eye can see.
That was honestly probably the original thing that made me even think about, could Batman beat Godzilla?
And the aspect of having them as a whole, even as an adult. I think that there's some fun to be had around having these conversations. But I think there is a lot of media literacy lost when you have these certain conversations. And I say this as somebody who was a judge and participated in a lot of different death battle content. Like I was literally on a panel of judges for a whole death battle tournament. I was behind promoting a death battle tournament. I've been involved in this side of things a little bit now. And over time, I've seen the nastier parts of what this does to the space in regards to conversation. Because there's a lot of this.
I think there's this misconception that the people that critique or push back on everything have to being about power scaling. I think there's this misconception that those people dislike power scaling, but it's like, no, actually, those are probably people who are power scalers, but they're like, what you're doing is sucking the fun out.
There's a few different things. And the first thing I want to point to is the idea that people lose media literacy in the pursuit of trying to power scale and have death battles. You tend to see this thing in regards to people having death battles and they're saying, oh, well, this character did this thing in this particular moment, or they suffered from this ailment or this loss from whatever it may be. Therefore, they are weaker than said character. But when you read into that particular moment in which is being used as an example, you see that in that particular moment, the story called for that thing because that moment and that loss or that victory or whatever it was supposed to be.
Oh my God, this is like the critique of Mark Grayson every single time. Invincible, the whole thing is that he loses and gets stronger. He almost dies every season because they explain it in the first season. Me and my partner are rewatching Invincible, and it is so odd to rewatch it and be like, how are the conversations, like the entire discourse around the last season is completely like out of control when you think of the first season.
A medium in giving the plot movement. It was supposed to be representative of something deeper within the story. But somebody saw that at a surface level and said, well, they're weak or they're strong because this thing happened. When in reality, there's a whole bunch of subtext that was missed because you weren't focused on the story in itself. When you're looking at a lot of things that happen within Invincible, right? You're looking at people that are saying, oh, Mark is weak. Mark doesn't do X, Y, and Z because he gets his ass beat every single episode. But instead of being concerned with what that means and
I didn't know that he was going to talk about Invincible. I guessed because, you know, what else? But I did not know that he was going to talk about Invincible.
How Mark is not invincible at the start of the show, but working to become invincible by the end of the series because it's symbolic.
What did I say? What did I just say? It's about the story. It's the plot.
Like, instead of that being things that are pushed to the forefront of your mind, you're just concerned with the fact that he's almost dying in every fight that he's in, and that's why he can't be stronger than a Saiyan or a Viltrum or a different Viltrumite or even Superman or Homelander, whatever it may be. These are the first thought processes that come. I think when you focus too much on death battles and what it was and trying to carry it on into modern day now and doing certain things, you rot the brain of the casual fan. Death battles are supposed to be a fun thing, not taken too seriously. But it's become this thing in regards to people are more worried about this than the actual story being told. Even outside of...
Exactly. it's people being more worried about this than the actual story being told. Like, at a point, I didn't really understand the critiques about Invincible, like in saying that the power scaling was so off and so bad, because it's like, you guys come back and watch the show though. Well, that's because the story's great. Power scaling is in the story. Like, so it means that it hasn't impacted the plot so that you don't understand what's going on. It's not that it doesn't make sense. You guys just don't like it.
The media literacy aspect of stories that I think people miss through death battles, I think intrinsically in the way that a lot of people have battles, it's kind of wrong. Because what tends to happen is that, let's say I want to have, let's say, I don't know, Daredevil and Batman face off in a fight, right? And I'm going to build my case around why I think Daredevil and Batman are in
the way that you deal with this is you have to say base forms, and you got to be like random encounter, no prep time, and no bullshit like Shadowland when he was the beast and or Batman gets the Hellbat armor. It's like, yeah, with their most gimmicky one arc super weapon, I'm sure they can defeat anybody because that's what the story called for.
By why I think Daredevil will beat Batman in a confrontation. And you tend to see people say, okay, like I said before, they'll go to a specific scan, they'll go to something from, let's say, for this instance, they'll go to Daredevil, let's say this particular instance, they'll go to Daredevil Shadowland, right? Book where Daredevil was turned into a villain by a character known as the Beast, who was like a demon that was part of the Hand. There's a whole situation there, and they end up having Matt Murdock's Daredevil be a villain for that particular running.
What the fuck did I just say? What did I just say? Exactly. That's what people go to. They go to the most powerful or the most obscenely powerful version of the character, and then they go, okay, well, that's where they're scaled to. No.
In the fight against all the heroes of New York to, let himself be a hero again, or at least to get stopped, or whatever happened in that story. He essentially in that story was really fucking strong. Healing factor, really strong, a lot of different things that came into play in that because he was possessed by a demon. But people don't take that into account. They see Daredevil doing a really dope thing and maybe don't read the story, maybe don't know the concept or the things that come preceding into that story as to why he would be that strong. And they just say, here's Daredevil being really strong, this is why he beat Batman, right? But again, you're not taking into account that this is a rare one-off instance in which he's possessed by a demon. This is a rare one-off instance that drove him to want to be possessed by a demon or to even want to kill characters in the story like a Bullseye, if you ever read that before. Again, a lot of things that lead up into that being a particular reason as to why Matt Murdock's Daredevil is that strong in that particular instance. And then going to the other side of the battle, right, where you're looking at Batman and
this is what we're talking about when we say like the media literacy gets lost when you only focus on that, because there are certain plot specific elements as to why those characters might have gotten those buffs in those specific stories, and they're not always apparent, so you can't scale them with that.
Talking about why Batman is so strong and why he has the ability to defeat God tier characters, because you see him on multiple instances defeat Superman or Wonder Woman or even the rest of the Justice League. Not taking into account the things that lead up to that particular thing happening is that Batman has been building up information and weaknesses on these characters for quite literally years and built really key scenarios in which he will be able to defeat them, or somebody will be able to take those plans and defeat them. When you're looking at something like Justice League Doomsday. I think it was called Doomsday. In that scenario, again, very unique thing that led to that happening. But people take these one-off instances, these very unique.
This mythology and all of these feats stacking on top of each other is exactly what he's talking about. Like, yeah, sure, if you combine 80 years worth of material, you get Batman can beat the Abrahamic God if you try hard enough. You could find a scan of it. Like the comics at this point, when the character is that old, they've done everything, especially during their wacky era.
Situations and make that the baseline of who these characters are. And then they continue to have these arguments where they pull out different random issues or panels from random books that are years apart that don't even connect within one another. And again, the big issue is when you're looking at comic book characters, there are different versions of the character that change. The character is only
how many times are we going to see that scan of Spider-Man punching the Hulk? Like that, like how many times are we gonna see? Like how many times are we gonna see these scans that we know that they're insanely one-off things? Like Wolverine and a drop of blood, like these things that that character can't always do that. They had this special thing that time.
As strong or weak as the writer for that story needs them to be. So you try to have a fight where you're making these characters a baseline strength, these one-off instances, you're intrinsically going to have a flawed argument, an argument that's going to go nowhere. But people just argue up and down about it. And again, it takes away from what those moments or what those things were even symbolic of. Why did Matt Murdock have a literal killer demon within him? What is that symbolic of? What things was he going through in his mind and in his life to make him be willing to accept that as a thing happening to him? Why is Batman so not trustworthy or trusting of the other members of the Justice League, even though they are heroes within his mind? What about him has caused him to be that untrustworthy or that untrusting of other characters? These are the little things you should be asking yourself, not just straight up, all right, can you beat them niggas? Maybe, again, you have all fairness in having these conversations. I just think that these conversations in a lot of different spaces, like especially a lot of casual spaces, are taking place.
And that's the point too. It's not that you guys are doing something inherently wrong. It's once it crosses over from opinionated editorial critique to the series is bad because they don't line up with your arbitrary rules, that's when it starts to get kind of weird.
It's before actually trying to break down the story being put in front of you. I think in my mind is another reason as to why certain people don't take comic books or comic book materials or movies as serious as I think they should. When you're looking at it as a kid-like medium, a medium that shouldn't be taken seriously, as a medium that doesn't have the depth in storytelling and showcasing problems and issues and reflecting the world outside in the way that it does. Because people, instead of being focused on all the other intrinsic things or the other subtext and things that come into the story, you're only focused on, all right, can he beat his ass? I know I'm gonna sound very self-righteous and kind of having this conversation, but I think it's one that needs to be had, and one that I know is gonna change everybody's mind out front. And it's not in me saying that we don't need to have death battles anymore at all, but just saying, please focus on the things that make these stories great, not just the fights. Now, I'll give you this. If this is a book or an anime, let's say something like DCKO maybe, that is 100% based in being just a tournament arc, and fighting is the name of the game when it comes to this book. Like, power scaling and fighting is the thing that it's made for. It's made to be catnip for the fans that are reading it. Cool. That is where those conversations should really stem from, because you have things in regards to characters fighting.
Exactly. If it is a fighting arc, then yes, that is literally the time for you guys to talk about power scaling. But if you were talking within the narrative over the course of just like the rest of the book, or like just time with the character, like things happen that affect the character that will or will not impact the way that they perform during a fight. Like, I always think of the old adage, like, do honeybees scale to power lifter because a guy who was allergic to bees got stung by a bee one time. So now honeybees are actually more powerful than the average 350 pound, 7 foot muscle. Like, that's not, you understand the context of that made that situation happen, right? The allergy was the thing that weakened him. If you have a glaring weakness to something, it doesn't matter how strong you are, you'll be taken out. Everybody who goes, Superman is weak to magic, you guys get it until it's time to get it for the narrative.
Being at the forefront of it. When you look at anime or shonen, you're looking at a tournament arc within a shonen. Hey, it's meant to be a thing in which combat is at the forefront. But even when looking at those things, I do think there is subtext you can draw from the fighting there. I do think when you're looking at a film or a show or a comic book where fighting is at the forefront of it, martial arts is at the forefront of it, you're still having storytelling being used within the choreography, within the fighting. You can show that characters are having senses of surprise or romance, whatever it may be. And I think the perfect example I can point to in regards to that is you're looking at something like Shang-Chi, right? A movie that came out a while ago, and again, Marvel, please do something with this character again. Like, Shang-Chi's been out in the woodwork for a minute now, off in La La Land, only seeing him in, like, I think Marvel Zombies, but that's besides the point. But when you're looking at a scene in that particular movie in which Shang-Chi's mother and father are meeting for the first time, they're having combat, you literally see them starting to fall in love and getting to understand one another through their martial arts fighting styles. And yes, you're getting this combat and this fighting that's going on here, but the fighting in itself is telling a story that is beautiful, and a story that if you're only paying attention to if he can beat her ass or not, you're losing all the nuance and all the layers and depth.
I seriously wonder, what do power scalers think of that scene? Like, they're fighting, but like, are they fighting? Like, do you guys like, did they not even see that scene?
To that particular moment. So again, this all being summed up again is not me asking you guys to just ignore all death battles, not saying that you can't have these conversations, that you can't power scale, but please, one, be more ethical about it and try to have some kind of set standard for it. If you're having battles between characters, say, hey, we're talking about Batman from this particular issue or Batman from this run, or talking about this character in particular from this thing over here. Don't be pulling
that. Just do that. Like, just go, okay, we're talking about this run from this. And a lot of people do before people go, no, man, what about this guy? Yeah, I know there's exceptions to the, generalization that I'm saying. They'll give like an idea of, we're talking about this character from this time period, right? So this base character versus that, or like will be like current up to current, whatever they are right now in the comic, how they are appearing right this second, or just be like the current version of them right this second, how they are right now in the comic versus anybody else. Could they win? That's fine as long as you keep it in that scope. But as soon as people are like, yeah, I mean, Superman, like, okay, how do you beat Superman after DCKO? Like, spoilers, but like, how do you beat him after he's just like, I'm omnipotent and he's just God? He's just in the universe? So like, what does he scale to now? Reality? Like, you see, like, DCKO, I think maybe they did it on purpose. They just kind of broke it, where they were just like, power scaling doesn't matter.
scans randomly out your ass. But most importantly, when having these conversations, please let's have a little bit more of an onus and a focus on the story in itself and what makes these things amazing. The stories are what make these characters great. The aura and the fighting is there, yes, but at its core, the stories are what give these things value intrinsically in my mind. And again, hopefully that is the case for a lot of you. If not, y'all are more likely going to voice it in the comment section below. But again, before you guys leave, I want to do some due diligence here and promote something. If you guys were not aware,
So I heard about this. This is the Kickstarter that Echelon Graphic Novels is going to be doing. So I'm going to actually just let him. I didn't realize that he was plugging this, but I'm gonna let you plug away, man.
as of now, having a Kickstarter going on, which we are promoting our trade paperback called The Gambit. It's going to be a trade that's going to include the first issues of all 5 of our flagship titles within the publisher. Reaper, my own book that I wrote myself, Briarlands, Ipswich, Slade and Ash, Blackmore, Steam, all these books.
If you guys are looking for them, I actually have reviews of Reaper and Blackmore, and actually another book from Echelon that isn't in this, called Divine Influence. I have a review of that one, so check the review playlist. Those are there.
From different genres, from steampunk to fantasy to horror to gothic action, whatever it may be, you'll get all of that in these first 5 issues, and these are all be within this trade, as well as other books that we have on the horizon, as well as a book that is a webcomic that we have from one of our interns that has an amazing way of telling stories that we can't wait for you guys to see. But if you guys want to be a part in supporting that and supporting all that we have to offer here at Echelon Graphic Novels, please go into the description below and click the link to the Kickstarter and go support that thing, y'all. Please help get that thing to its goals so we can get that out to you guys. But besides that, my name is Captain Diesel. This is Captain Diesel Dojo.
So I agree with the captain here. Power scaling has gotten a little out of hand. But please go check out that GoFundMe. I'll actually link it down below too. So go check out all those indie books. And yes, that is my main focus here. Is definitely going to be indie books. I'm going to start moving in that direction. So you'll probably see more videos like this where I'm talking about that. But you know, I only ask you guys to do 2 things. Go drink some water, do something kind, and I'll see you next time. Peace.